An absolute smash and grab job by Steve Clarke's men. 3-1 winners against the Greeks. Joint top of the group, I've got no idea how they've done it. As usual, there's loads to get talking about, so let's get stuck in. This is the No Scotland No Party podcast, supported by Ball Bags, official boxers of the men's national team. And if you'd like to get your hands on a £20 Ball Bags voucher, all you need to do is like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, pop on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our channel there, or just engage with us on our socials, and we'll be picking someone at random after the Belarus game. Right, let's go.
We know we ain't no football experts, but we all feel the same about the beautiful game. The game. No Scotland, no party. Podcast for the Tartan Army.
Okay, welcome everybody. Unfortunately, we don't have Craig again today. He's got some work commitments, but we are joined, as usual, with Dave. Hi, Dave. How you doing?
Good. Well, brilliant, actually, Craig, to be honest with you.
And Hazel, how are you getting on? Hazel's joining us again.
Good morning. Yeah, it's been an early start for me this morning, so I'm buzzing now. I've had 2 cups of coffee now.
Good, you're buzzing. Well, Dave, I can hardly believe it. Usually, you know, it's glorious defeat for Scotland with these great performances and we end up with losses, but it's completely the opposite this time around. We were woeful. And I've just got no idea how we managed to win that 3-1. What are your views on the game?
I think, Craig, I mean, the starting point is, right, in the last podcast, we said we've just got to win, right? And I think we kind of also said it doesn't really matter how we do it. Of course, we'd like to do it with brilliant football and all the rest. But the key thing is we've got to win, because we said this was really like the swing game. This was the critical game, you know, felt a bit like Norway away, etc. Right, in terms of the importance and so on. And right, despite everything, we won. So I'm not really answering your question, but I'm saying, first of all, let's just be pleased that we won, right? We did what we said. So I've got some sympathy with what, with what Stevie Clarke says, right? About the fact that, football's a complicated game and we had to get the result and we got the result, right? Having said all that, obviously we were all worried for a long time. I think we were very lucky to win it, honestly. I really do. But, I suppose the real answer to your question, how do we do it, is just that once Greece scored, we played in the way and with the intensity that we'd actually wanted us to play with from the start, right? And so we basically played properly from then on. And, we got the rewards. We were lucky and we got the rewards.
Yeah, thanks. So, Hazel, I know that you were going through the ringer before the match. What were you like during it when we went 1-0 down?
It was funny. It was like a premonition, and I think I said to you guys before the Denmark game, I was really cautiously optimistic. I don't know why in my gut, but I was nervous. And even when we kicked off, I thought the players looked a bit nervous, and so I think that kind of transposes into the kind of the fans. But yeah, we just didn't seem to be doing anything. And I think I said to my dad a couple of times, look, we're going to get crucified for this play, because Greece played us in our own half the whole time, and I just said it's just a matter of time. Was it Karitsis? Sadly didn't go to the Blue Lagoon. But for his crispy pizza supper, that we might have thought he might have been off kilter last night. But it just unravelled, didn't it? Really, but I was nervous because this was a crunch game. As Dave mentioned, this is like going back to Israel in 2021, key match, and obviously Norway away game, and that's what was important last night for us.
Yeah. So Dave, I mean, it's something that we've spoken about in the podcast before, is these Steve Clarke teams, and it's certainly worse when we played with the back five. It's the passing along the back, going from one end to the next, nothing coming out of midfield, and it's just going back and forward and nothing happening. Now, remember, there was one game, I can't remember which game it was, but Ferguson came in and we said, this is like a breath of fresh air. He's coming out of midfield, he's picking up the ball and he's creating stuff. But last night when he came out of midfield, he was just putting the ball back to the defenders again. Yeah. And even before we scored our goal, the ball went to McTominay, and McFadden was nearly pulling his hair out because he said, I knew that was going back to the defenders. Every time we seemed to get it out into midfield, it just went back again.
We didn't. I mean, until Greece scored, right, we didn't really seem to know what we were doing, is what I would say. Mm-hmm. And then, so if you don't really know what you're doing, you get the ball, the default, if you like, is go backwards and pass it around. And I think that's what we were doing. And why I say we didn't seem to know what we were doing was most of the time we weren't pressing them. The Greek, if you compare it, the Greeks would get the ball. We weren't pressing them. Every now and then somebody would try and press, but they were pressing on their own, which we all know doesn't work. Right. So it felt like we hadn't worked out how to, basically how to play against the Greeks. The players looked confused. And I'd say McTominay was the one that was, looked most confused. He really didn't know whether he was meant to be playing much further forward alongside Adams or further back or whatever. And he had all, I can't remember what it was, but he had like 5 touches in the first half or something, something like that. I might be wrong, but something like that. McTominay was hardly in the game and he just looked confused. Right. And I think, and so again, that's my point, is that then when we pick up the ball in midfield, like Ferguson, is looking around, there's no proper system worked out, really. You can play it to Gannon Doak. That was about the only idea we seemed to have, at least for the first few minutes, was getting out to Gannon Doak. But otherwise, we don't really know what we're doing. So pass it backwards again. And I think that's what we were doing.
I think fair play to Hickey. Hickey kind of looked at the game and said, I'm not playing part of this. And he would come out of the defence and he would go up the right, and then it was left with the 3 of them who were just passing it between each other, and Hickey still wasn't getting the ball. It was so frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
But as you say, they were trying to get it to Doak, but it really didn't. It really didn't work out, did it?
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Hazel, he made a few impact subs during the game that obviously completely changed the game. How did you think about that? Were you surprised who came on, or what were your views on it?
So I said to my, I was, talking to a few guys, and I said, Andy Postecoglou, I said that very quickly because I can never pronounce it properly. But he is a guy at 60 minutes, and his kind of tactical play is 60 minutes, 3 subs. That's how he plays. And I said to a few guys, what we need now is a complete change in tactics and get players on, because it's not working. Gannon Doak was nowhere to be seen. It just didn't work. And I said, we need Gilmour on here. We need Gilmour on here. We need to change the tactical formation, and because on paper it wasn't working. So I think the fact that he sort of switched things around, and did he not switch? He switched Christie, because he kind of seemed to be in a different kind of position. I don't know whether he was switched around up.
Yeah, so Christie was playing defensive, and then he
was in the middle.
When Gilmour came in there, and Christie went up on the left.
And something you could start to see, what we kind of envisaged against Denmark. It was kind of then, and I know I'm going to say biscuit hits, but Katie coming on, different class. We always say that, when he's fit. I saw 3 Greek players on him, and yet he managed to get around these 3 Greek players and start to create the stuff, the magic that Katie produces on the pitch. And he was up the park, and suddenly we just looked like a proper football team. But I think what I said was Adams should have come off a lot sooner and Dykes on. In fact, I don't know why Dykes wasn't on from the beginning. Was it because he wasn't match fit? Who knows? But I think there's a point in time, especially, 60 minutes, you think, right, it's not working, get Dykes on, because we know he's not going to score every time, but he's a big, strong player. And you saw that, the difference, all of that. As soon as Dykes was frightening the Greek players, because they weren't scoring. They weren't, yes, they got one goal, but you need to get players to start pushing up. McTominay, for me, as you say, Dave, he was lost, completely lost. Was he playing out of formation? I mean, I rated him as a 5 last night. He just did, a Ballon d'Or, nominee, and he's, player of the year. Where was he last night?
Yeah.
Where was he? And the same, Ferguson didn't play, but suddenly Ferguson was all over the place, and he was really battling it out, and winning the ball. So again, I think we needed those subs probably sooner, but thank goodness that there was a lot of conversations between Steve Clarke and Steve Naismith. There was a lot. I thought at one point he was getting a coffee from Steve Naismith, but I was hoping at that point, that we're actually having a confab. This is not working. We need to change it.
Yeah, well, I think that the catalyst for the change, Hazel, seemed to be, the combination of the Greek goal,
yes,
right, which forced us to go forward, and Gilmour coming on.
Correct.
And you can argue about which one's the more important, or whatever. But those are the two things that happened,
Yeah,
right?
you're right.
And all of a sudden, right, with Gilmour coming on, right, and us having to push forward, that meant that both Christie and Ferguson could at least be more flexible. You can argue about which one stayed closer to Gilmour and all that, but basically they both could go forward much more because they knew Gilmour was behind and holding a wee bit,
Yeah.
right? And all of a sudden, but I mean, Ferguson was much better after
Yeah.
Gilmour came on, I think, right? I mean, suddenly they could play with more freedom, get forward more. Even McTominay looked like he understood better what was going on then, right? I mean, I think
it gelled at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But Gilmour should be starting every game. I mean, Gannon Doak, we've talked about him. He's great as a substitute coming on, and he's great at crosses. But I just don't think he's at the level that Gilmour's at. Right, Gilmour's playing with Scott McTominay at Napoli, and you could suddenly see the two Napolitan players together, and they were much more focused. And suddenly you thought, this is the stuff that the dreams are made of. And I, at that point, my knotted stomach turned into excitement because I thought, this is what we've been waiting on.
You know, it's a good job I wasn't in charge of the Scotland team last night, because I'd have had Ferguson off at half time. His backward passing was, I was screaming at the telly. I wasn't in the game last night. Screaming. I couldn't believe. It was just so negative. But then, you know, he gets, it's him that gets the foul. He gets the goal. You know, it turns it around. He ends up getting man of the match. What do I know? Hey? What do I know? I still don't think he should have got man of the match.
That's a sign you're going to be the next key football commentator in Sky Sports. That's a key qualification for the job, Craig, is to do things like what you did last night.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, it's so frustrating watching the BBC last night, and as usual, when the formation came up, they didn't get the formation right. They never get the formation right.
I know.
It's as if they've never seen a Scotland game before.
I know.
I thought it was going to be a 4-3-3 with Christie on the left, and it was just like, what? It's not going to happen. So frustrating. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dave Dykes, what happened? He was fantastic when he came on, wasn't he?
He was.
Great.
Yeah, he was. He was brilliant. I mean, he came on, you know, huge energy. The Greeks were obviously worried about it, as Hazel just said. You know, I've not been a great fan of Dykes over the years, but he was, you know, he's delivered. He was brilliant. And we had great fun singing the Lyndon Dykes song again, which fits perfectly with the World Cup, of course. So that's an added bonus for everybody.
But you know, and you've got to take in the last podcast we were talking about Kieran Bowie, and I said just in that the Edinburgh Derby, he looked off the pace. And if you looked at what Dykes did when he had that, I think it was a missed touch that went through to the goalkeeper. He was on top of the goalkeeper. He ran at the goalkeeper. He thought, just in case something happens here, I'm going to be on top of that. And that's what Kieran Bowie hasn't been doing. And sure enough, it fell straight for him. And I thought he's the only person in that stadium, I think, that thought, I've got a chance of getting something. Because it looked like a fairly straightforward save for the keeper.
Yeah, it was.
But do you know an observation I made last night? I wrote this down in my phone. And I don't know if it was deliberate, but if I was sitting in the lower south stand, now Dykes was there, standing there watching the play in the second half, and he was up there on his own. He wasn't kind of warming up, and I'm wondering if Clarke and Naismith put him up to basically observe what was happening, where the weak points were, because he was watching that the whole time, because it's very unusual for just one sub to be standing there for the time that he did, to be standing watching exactly everything that was going on. And I wondered if they said, look, go up and watch and see where, pick out where the weak points are, because you're going on and we need to create more, we need to get some goals. I don't know, but that's just, you know, watching that right in front of me. Because,
that could be the case. Well, look, Hazel, we've now played 3 games and we're sitting on 7 points, joint top with the Danes. I certainly didn't see that coming.
No.
Did you see it coming?
No, I didn't. And you know, I think it's, I mean, an absolute drubbing. You know, Belarus beaten 6-0 by the Danes. But do you know what? I was expecting that anyway. But I thought if we got a draw last night, we'd be doing really well. And, you know, joint top, 7 points. There's a 4-goal difference between us and the Danes, and this kind of leads us on maybe to you know I'm worried about the Belarusian banana skin. I really do, because you know we get ourselves hyped up and we're almost there, but I think Clarke and the squad are very controlled in that, but I think Sunday night is all about getting 3 points, but we need to up our goal difference. I think this no 2-0 wins against Belarus, because as you know, at the end of the campaign, it always comes down to goal difference for us. So I think that's what the mindset needs to be. We've done that. It was a dirty piece of work. We have to get on with it and just dig deep. But we need to get goals, because it could be a draw between Denmark and Greece. We hope that Denmark kind of do, they win, but same time it could be, if they get a draw with Greece, it changes us, and if we obviously win substantially, get 3 points, we go top. So that mindset at the moment, never did I think I'd be talking about all of these logistics today.
Well, yeah, Dave. So it is not just us playing on Sunday night. There is this other game, this Denmark-Greece game, and it's so interesting that, do we want a draw? Do we want to go top of the group, or do we want Denmark to win so that we're guaranteed a qualification spot? What do you think? What do we want? What do we want from that game?
I think it's surprisingly complicated to work out what you want, right? Because you have to bear in mind that the playoffs, you get to the playoffs, it's 1 in 4 teams goes through, right? And there's potentially a lot of good teams in the playoffs. It's one-off games, home or away. We might get through the playoffs, but you certainly can't count on that at all, right? So on balance, honestly, I think we want the Denmark-Greece game to be a draw. Right. And the reason for that is, so I don't really share Hazel's optimism that we're going to have a better goal difference than Denmark come the end of the day. Right. Not least because the night that we play away in Athens, Denmark's home to Belarus. And I think if they know that they have to win by 5, they'll win by 5, right, to have a better goal difference. OK, because under most scenarios, you come down to the Scotland-Denmark game, the last game, and you're looking at, do we have to win? Almost, if we win that, we should be through, right? This all assumes we are going to beat Belarus on Sunday, right? But, it's hard to put together really a convincing scenario that we can go into the Denmark game with a better goal difference than them, and therefore a draw is going to be all right. Okay, so that's why I think what we actually want is a draw between Denmark and Greece, because that means that if we can beat Greece in Greece, right, then we only need a draw against Denmark. And even the other side is, even if we were to lose to Greece, which obviously we don't want to do, and that does potentially mean that Greece could catch us in the group, though it's unlikely, but they could, right? But it means, again, we'd go into if Denmark-Greece is a draw, we'd go into the last game against Denmark still in the same position that if we win, we'd be through, and as top of the group, right? You run the numbers, we'd be on 13 points, and Denmark would be on 11 in that if they draw, right? Whereas if they beat Greece, then on Sunday, then the away game in Greece, we have to get at least a point. Otherwise, we can't catch Denmark in the group, right, on goal difference. So I look at it and say, on balance, you look at all the risks and the advantages and stuff. I'd rather it was a draw, but it's very complicated, and it can,
I know it's early doors and there's only a couple of games played in some groups, but as it stands at the moment, these are the playoff teams. You get Germany, Sweden, Ukraine, Turkey, Hungary, Poland, Finland, Bosnia, Italy, Israel, Belgium, Wales, Serbia, and Czechia. We don't want to get involved in that, do we?
That's the thing.
No.
We'll end up with Germany, and we'll be back thinking about the Euros last year.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Interestingly, Greece can only obtain 9 points if they're going to win all of the games. It's 9 points, and they're on 3 at the moment. Greece, so all they can get. My maths is so it's 9 points. So all the maximum they can get is 12 points. And that's, as you say, Dave, do you look at the playoff as a kind of safer option for us? But then we look at, as Craig's just rattled through all these, having heart-stopping moments about some of the people that you potentially, and Scotland's, draw against a playoff, you're never going to get the easy ones like England get, like Andorra and people. You're not going to get that, right? We know what the Scotland way is, Germany or something like that, or Hungary. But you know what? We've proved it last night. If we dig in deep, we can produce some golden nuggets.
Yeah, I mean, the easy thing to say at this stage, right, is what we know is we win the 2 home games and we get a point in Athens and we've won the group. We're at the World Cup, right? We know that, right? That's the easy thing to say. But if you run through the different scenarios, which I tried to do this morning, you know, and thinking about if this, if that, and all the rest, I think in the end, a draw between Denmark and Greece opens up a few more possibilities for us, a few more chances to get there. And I think on balance, again, Greece and Denmark are probably easier than whoever we might get in the playoffs.
That's a good point.
You know, so
Yeah.
you know, so I fancy us more in those 2 games than I would do in a lot of the playoff games. Not all, but a lot of them.
I think he's sorry.
No, you go, Hazel.
I think we've proved ourselves against Denmark, obviously, but I think the difference with Denmark now, we obviously had them first game. Reimar, I think we talked about this prior to the game with Denmark. Reimar has got Hoyland. Craig Ferguson talked about the fact that he just moved to Napoli and hopefully he had an off game, and he did have an off game. Now he's banging in 2 goals, 3 goals for Denmark now. So, you know, that is my worry. Yeah. You know, we the last game, because you know Scotland, it's always the last game that it comes down to inglorious failure. But let's look at a glass half full. We know that we've always lost the games away to Denmark. We've lost them, and we got a draw out of it. And I think, you know, listening to Andy Robertson, listening to John McGinn, all these guys know that this is a last hurrah for them. You know, they know the next World Cup, it's unlikely they're going to be there. And there's this mindset now in amongst my friend, Mr. Hanley, all of that. They all know this is the last chance saloon for them to go to the World Cup. And I think that drive and that, you know, impetus for that team, you know, for that squad of players, they want to be there. I think there's more than ever. We missed out, didn't we, in 2022 playoff.
We have been saying it. We might be jumping the gun a bit here. We do have a game on Sunday, and for that we are missing Ferguson and Christie. Not quite sure if they've both done that on purpose or not, but Hickey's.
I don't know if you listened to the Andy Barge this morning. Said, you know, it was such a silly yellow card. Did Christie do it deliberately? To be honest, if they have done it, thank you, Ferguson and Christie, for doing that, because naturally you would want them against Greece and Denmark and not against Belarus, because that's the one that you can bring in other players and not worry too much. But I'm just worried. We've seen it before. Kazakhstan's at the San Marinos, you know.
Twice.
Yes.
Yeah. So Dave, without Hickey as well, what are we thinking about this formation for Belarus? Are we going to stick with the 4-2-3-1? Will he go back to the 4-4-2? What do you think?
I think he'll go back to 4-4-2.
Yeah.
I think Gilmer will be in the midfield along, of course, with, I assume, McTominay and McGinn. I think there's a question mark whether Gannon Doak starts as the fourth one in that, or whether somebody else. And I think Dykes and Adams will start up front. And otherwise, I would think that he'll stick with the same central defence. I think Robertson, and probably it's Ralston who comes in.
I think so.
Is what I imagine.
You might get Kenny McLean in. I mean, sometimes you have to use players that are seasoned players, and actually you can rely on, because it's not such a big game. Excuse me. So, you know, he might bring in McLean, and he might, you know, do what he did in Norway. But you know, that's pie in the sky now. But that's when you want to use the likes of McLean in those, you know, that game on Sunday. So, just for that kind of senior squad, you know, that formation. So.
Or to build on a point you made earlier, Hazel, maybe he starts with Tierney, which I know I've argued against before, but maybe he starts with Tierney on the left side of midfield.
I thought he had a brilliant game last night. The time he came on, he was just the Tierney that I.
Yeah, so you could start with him and bring Gannon Doak on in the second half if you need to, when they're tiring, and say to him, run at them. And maybe I'd like to see Gannon Doak on the right, not the left. and maybe but maybe you try him on both sides and all the rest. See where he gets most joy.
I don't think he'd risk Tierney in midfield because of the issues with not injuries, but like fitness with Robertson and Tierney. They can't do the 90 minutes unless he brings Doig in to replace Hickey. But I haven't read anything this morning about that. But I just think he's more than likely to. Mind you, having said that, Robertson didn't play the full match, but he played 90 minutes. I think you might be onto something, Hazel, with McLean. I think he might go for the 4-2-3-1, and I think he might put Gilmour and McLean in there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. You can never second guess Clarke, can you? You never know what he's going to do.
I wouldn't be surprised if he plays McLean. I agree. The only thing I'd say is we don't need. You shouldn't need two holding players. You shouldn't need two holding midfielders at home to Belarus. Right? You shouldn't. Right? When Belarus have lost whatever number of goals it is already in the 3 games, right?
1,002 goals, is it now?
Yeah. And the trouble I don't know, the trouble with the 4-2-3-1 is that means you don't have Dykes and Adams, and I think we like Dykes and Adams away to Denmark. And if ever there's a game that looks good for the two of them, it's this one, because you can afford 2 attackers at home to Belarus, and So I feel like it's more 4-4-2, but I don't quite know who the fourth midfielder is going to be. After Gilmour, McTominay, and McGinn. I mean, it could be Kenny McLean. I think Hazel may well be right on that. He might start with Doak again. I threw Tierney in just trying to think. Well, the age-old conundrum of how do you get Tierney into the team?
How do you solve a problem like Maria? I was just looking at Belarus have had 12 goals scored against them.
Yeah.
So you would think, that in itself, the predictions at the moment who will win, believe it or not, the predictions is a draw between us and Belarus, which I can't understand who has probably come up with that, but we can't have a draw. It's as simple as that. We know we need to win this one.
What are your predictions, Hazel?
I'm going for 4-0 Scotland.
Dave?
I think that's
3-0.
I'm going for 4 as well. I think we'll take them to the cleaners. Right. I think they're there. I think they're an awful team, actually. I think we've seen they're an awful team. I think we gave them a bit too much respect away from home. But yeah, I think
I think we've got we've got the 12th man, i.e. the Tartan Army this time. It's a flat, nobody there. I think they'll rise. I heard my pal Laurie McKinnon piping in the ground, Flower of Scotland. I think you probably may have heard it, and he rattled out Flower of Scotland. We all sang it, and you could see that. You could see it again lifting the team.
It was honestly it was pretty quiet for the first 60 minutes last night, I would say, but it obviously finished on a huge high with everybody saying "See you Sunday" and all that. So I agree, Hazel. It's going to be a good atmosphere. I completely agree with you.
I can't wait for Sunday. I can't wait. I've not had a good sing-song in Hampden for a long time. I think we've talked about this before. It's been so many games recently been quiet, but I think it's going to be absolutely jumping on Sunday.
Should be good. That'll be good. Yeah.
Right, cool. Is there anything else you guys want to cover?
No, I think that's it. Let's just win again, right? Let's just win again on Sunday.
Was that not a song? Is that like the Bee Gees? You win again.
Don't start singing.
You don't want me to be singing though.
I'm showing my age now.
Right. Okay.
Right, gang. Right, I'll come back and wrap this up. Right, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Lenny. Cheers. Right, we will be back on Monday with a review of hopefully the Belarus victory, which will put us one step closer to World Cup qualification. In the meantime, if you'd like to win yourself a £20 Bob Bags voucher, all you need to do is jump onto Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our channel there. Jump onto YouTube, like and subscribe there, or just go onto any one of our socials and talk to us about Scotland. So tell us what you think about the show, tell us what you think about Scotland, and we'll be picking someone at random after the Belarus game. So until Monday, take care, and come on, Scotland!
We know we ain't no football experts, but we all feel the same about the beautiful game, the Scotland